Okay, so I'll just to make it easy, I'll call people out. So this is the voice of Paul Gross. I'm the chairman and founder of the Cerebral Palsy Research Network, and I am an adjunct associate professor at the University of Utah. And I'm just going to go in line down the list here. Lemma, can you introduce yourself?
Yeah, of course. Hello, everyone. My name is Lama Al-Barkawi. I have joined CPRN team 2 years and a half now, 2 years and a half ago. My main responsibilities in the project include ETL development at the DCC side, of course, database development and management, and analyzing data and preparing descriptive tables. I look forward to working with all of you and will be very happy to help with anything needed going forward. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Lama. Richard and Melody?
Hi, this is Richard and Melody. We're from Nationwide Children's Hospital. We're on our research data collaboration team. We're responsible for all things in terms of data from EPIC for research networks and research collaboratives. So I manage a team of 10 people, and Melody is one of the ETL developers on the team.
Great. Brian?
Hi, this is Brian Ahrens. I'm a data analyst at Nationwide Children's Hospital, and I was pulled into CPRN to primarily curate the data mapping of SDEs to REs at CPRN, and then also to facilitate smart form change requests.
Great. Blair?
I am Blair Cooper. I am the sort of development manager and software developer for CPRN, and I guess responsible for a lot of the design architecture for how we collect data and what we do with it once we've got it.
Okay. And then at Rady, I heard that we had an Andrew in addition to Andy.
Yeah. Andrew DeFonte is a new hire here for us for research informatics, so he's joining, but he is not yet certified in EPIC, so he's learning as he goes.
Yeah,
okay.
I'll be going to EPIC next week, actually. But
okay.
Yeah, I'm working with Andy here.
Andy, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, Andy. My name's Andy Richardson. I'm a research data developer here at Rades.
Great. Josiah.
Hi, my name's Josiah Chisel. I work more on the front end in terms of physician support and building documentation tools for the providers.
Great. Thank you. All right. So I'm assuming people can see the screen. I'm going to get it out of thumbnail mode and put it in and just provide a quick background. So can everybody see the screen?
Just fine.
I only see a black screen. Does anybody else see anything?
Yeah, I'm fine.
I can see.
I can see slides, yeah.
I can see the agenda slide, yes.
Well, so I think I sent a draft of I sent the final of the slides to you guys both yesterday. So I'd just say you can follow along there if that would be easiest if you're not able to get the display to work. So I'm going to give a quick introduction, and then Richard and Melody and Brian are going to talk about the extraction sort of from the side of being an EPIC site, and then Blair is going to talk about the data load side of this and the transfer of the data. I just want to provide a little context, for you about CPRN. So Cerebral Palsy Research Network is a collaborative research network that's focused on improving outcomes for people with cerebral palsy through high-quality research and quality improvement initiatives. It's a collaboration, so we're not actually an entity. It's a bunch of organizations that I've organized, but we're all just agreeing to collaborate to work towards improving outcomes for this population. Lots of hospitals are doing in-kind donation of services in the form of what you, Josiah, have done and what I expect you will be doing, Andy. And then the clinicians are devoting the time both to collect the data as well as to propose research and whatnot. There is at its core a data coordinating center, which is based at the University of Utah, and numerous of us are on the call, although we're quite virtual. And at the core of CPRN is this clinical registry, which is what we're talking about today. We also have a patient-reported registry, and we'll talk to you guys about where that has any effect on you at some point in the future. But those are the sort of core pieces of infrastructure of CPRN. It's currently, we have 25 sites that have accepted, pardon me, an invitation to participate, 21 sites that have sort of approval of all of the things like IRBs and data transfer agreements, 12 sites that are actively collecting data, and pardon me, something stuck in my throat. As I've said, site participation is internally funded at each site, although as we drive towards funded studies, of which we have had one funded and two that are active, that's completed, and two that are actively funded, that does generate support either for the data center or for the sites, depending on the nature of the study. And where we're driving towards is a semi-annual push of data of that registry data from the sites to the data coordinating center. And then the last thing I'll end with from just an overview is this is just a map of where we are. The green sites, the green pins represent sites that are enrolling patients at some rate. The yellow sites are still doing kind of preparatory work to get the forms up and running. A couple sites still trying to get IRB approval and business associates agreements signed, and the blue ones are sites that are hoping to come on board and doing the work that they need to do to be invited to the network. So that's the overview. Let me just back up and ask the folks from Rady have any questions about CPRN and sort of how this works, sort of all fits together?
I do not at this point.
Yeah, I don't either.
Okay, great. All right, so I turn it to you, Richard, and just when you need me to, just say, next slide, please.
Sure, and anytime anybody has any questions, feel free to jump in and ask some questions. So we're well down this path. We've been submitting data now to Utah for a while and have gone through a few iterations. So we're hoping that by walking through what we've done, it kind of gives you a good groundwork and direction to what needs to be done. So data obviously has to be extracted out of each of our individual databases and prepared in such a way that we can get it to Utah. We've been using the PCORNet data model to do that, and we've been extracting data from our Clarity environment since this is a semi-annual push, right? We can use Clarity and get data from there, and so we can do that. And of course, the assumption is that you've built things in your Epic to collect this data, as there's a lot of extra data elements to help support this particular research network. All right, next slide. So with that in mind, a lot of the heavy lifting really comes in terms of getting these mappings set up and around how you've done any customization to your smart data elements. We've done the mapping both for the Epic standard ones and then NCH specific elements that we've done, and those mappings are available to share with the group, but really a lot of it comes down to where we want to go with this, and this is where the complexities come in. So, there's definitely some mapping complexities out there. It's not just like pick up an ICD code and put it into a field in for these things. So you got to go through. This is where Brian has been just excellent and fantastic addition to our team recently to help us with this mapping exercise. So kind of sounds like I heard both types of resources maybe on the call. I heard of a technical resource and then a physician-facing resource, and that's been extremely helpful to have the two groups working together to help work through mapping and nuances. So I think just a key call out and a lesson learned there is Melody here is great, but a developer who is very much looking at the back-end data doesn't have as much visibility into the nuances of the clinical data flow here, and having someone like Brian who is up front as an analyst really helps out a lot with that. So again, as we have new sites come on board, we can leverage the mappings and the bindings that we've done, and then hopefully that just leaves any customizations for you and a review to make sure that it's built similarly across your site. All right, next slide, please. So what we did is our Clarity environment is sitting on Oracle. So we've got a corpus of PL/SQL code to pull that data from Clarity into our pCoreNet model. Again, if there's some nuances to your mappings, you'll have to upload the mapping tables and modify those as well. It is a very important step so that when the data gets to Blair and Lemma in Utah, that they are able then to leverage and use that data for the combined network and reporting as they go forward. The data it's modeled in from our Clarity Oracle to the pCoreNet, which is also hosted in Oracle in our research environment. When that's complete, we've got a small XML extraction tool. Could be written in pretty much just any language. We implemented in Java, and again, that's something that we're able to share. That takes all of the data from the different patients and their visits in Oracle and puts them into a standardized XML document. And that XML document is then what we ship to Utah. The advantages of using that XML document then is we can validate before we even send out the door that we're sending a structurally correct document. There's also a data validator on top of that to make sure that what we're plugging into the fields are acceptable values, and if it's a numeric field and we're putting in characters, it can warn us on that before we even get it out the door. So we produce that XML file and then check it locally before sending it out. Right now, since it's semi-annual, we're pushing the button kind of manually just to log into the Utah Secure Server and push that XML file up to them. Not a lot of effort there, and pretty easy for us to do.
This is Andy from Rades. We're in the process of migrating to SQL Server. Are you guys going to be updating your code for that at some point?
No, we discussed a year ago if we wanted to move our Clarity to SQL Server. We decided that we're going to stay on Oracle and actually made a pretty heavy investment into a larger Oracle environment. I would say that in terms of, I understand, right, PL/SQL and T-SQL and SQL Server have some nuances, but I think what you're going to find is that there's not too many Oracle specialized things in there. So while you won't be able to use the code directly, I think it'll be relatively easy for you to translate into SQL Server T-SQL.
Okay, thank you.
And Andy, the thing that I would say in general, as part of the preamble suggested, the way a lot of this has been working is people sort of tackle whatever piece of the puzzle is in front of them that can't be borrowed from someone else. So, we'll get to the PL/SQL code, and then, if there's something that's you're not clear what it's doing, that would be what the analog is in SQL Server. We can help you with that, and then hopefully when you're done with that, we just make that as an additional resource that's available to other sites that are SQL Server based.
Sure, makes sense.
Great. Any other questions?
No.
All right, let's go to the next slide then. So again, we're going toward the pCoreNet model here. At the end of the day, it lands in about 30 or so tables. So not a huge data set, but not a small data set either. And at least in terms of our Epic implementation, we're going across about 45 Epic tables. So again, kind of the small core sliver within Epic, visits, diagnosis, labs, vitals, in flow sheets. And then, of course, smart data elements to hit all the key CP-specific fields. So if you've already got a pCoordinate data model sitting around, you might be in really good shape. And you might be able to just modify the XML process, but if not, again, some kind of ETL process to get it into that model. I think a lot of the other things like labs and blood pressures and visits are relatively easy to map. Those are things that are pretty straightforward, but the complexity of those smart data elements and the CP-specific forms, that's where you'll spend a good majority of your time in terms of making sure that they're correct for your site. Okay, and I'm trying to think of where.
I think we're on the
Blair's slide now?
This is Blair's slide. I didn't realize it was a build, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So some of this Richard's already covered, but yeah, this will go through just the flow as a whole, right? So obviously there's an app.
Do you want me to build it all out, or do you want to?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah.
So say everything's in Epic to start with. Somehow, potentially through an enterprise data warehouse that's probably already in place, right? You have the data available that's in Epic. Like Richard said, they use clarity reports to extract the data, get it into the coordinate structure. And we've chosen that because it's a sort of common standards. It's likely already in use by a number of sites that are part of CPRN. So it should be something that's familiar, and it aligns pretty well with creating a common format that we can send to CPRN, right, and then ingest. As I mentioned, right, the method or the format to do that is XML. It's obviously everybody's familiar with it. It's easy to validate the structure. And then once that's been generated, right, it's uploaded to the DCC at the University of Utah. With that, we create or have what we call a keyhole for each site. So they have a unique set of credentials, a unique storage location, so each site can only access, right, their data that they've uploaded. Keeps everybody segregated at that point. And then our ETL process validates the data as it comes in. Assuming it's good, it continues on. If it's not, this part isn't quite in place yet, but if a site uploaded data and it had an issue with the validation, right, the site would get notified via email as well as the resources at the University of Utah, and then we'd sort of follow up to resolve whatever the issues were with that. Assuming it does validate, right, it gets ingested through an ETL process into the registry and combined with all the other sites' data, and then it would be available for data extraction for studies or presentations, conferences, that kind of thing. So that's kind of the overview of how we collect the data. I think I only had the one slide, Paul.
Yeah, no, that's correct. So that's kind of the overview. So we've got sort of the set of files that we've talked about that we can hand off. I guess the question to you guys is, now with more detail, do you kind of feel like you know where you need to go, and what questions do you have? And then the next thing I'd like to do, after those are addressed, is get you these template files, and then just be available. Encourage you to document when you have questions. I mean, like when something's not clear, so we can do a better job documenting it beyond our spec that we've provided and whatnot. And then just interact with us, and we'd like to get it to the point that you can push and understanding kind of what the effort was and what the challenges were, and where we can make our tools better to make the process easier.
Okay, so did you already send us the templates, or you said you were about to?
I don't think we've sent them yet. No, we have not sent them yet, because I assume I would have sent them because I don't know that Blair, Lemma, Richard, Melody had your address. I know I've seen these before. I don't know if we've made mods based as a function of the mapping. Are we ready to send these, Richard and Melody? All the support files, the mapping files, and the tools.
Yep, we've just been making modifications this week with the latest mapping, so they're close, but give us one more chance to go through them one more time, make sure they're good to go. So won't be long.
Okay, so are you talking about like a week's time? Kind of just if you could put a.
Yeah, definitely before Christmas.
Okay, great.
So
we'll get you those files, and I'm sure that's going to generate your next round of, like, if you have questions or whatnot.
Right. And so in those files would include the scripts for generating the XML?
Yeah, so we can send, we've got some general documentation that we can send. That'll be ready first, and then we'll also be able to put together, we have our Java code which generates the XML. Do you want the PL SQL code? Do you think it'd be useful to look at it even though you're going to be on SQL Server?
Yes, actually, because I don't know how long we might maintain our Oracle server, so it might be useful.
Okay. Yeah, so we'll get you documentation and the XML generation code and the Oracle code as well.
Perfect. Okay.
And then I presume, hopefully correctly so, you've already, there's 3 documents, the data collection overview, data submission specification, and the registry elements. I presume you've seen those?
I believe
they definitely have. I don't know if they're remembering, because I know that I recorded them and they downloaded them.
At the last meeting, yeah.
Okay.
So I think that's pretty much so it. I think I did not realize when we scheduled that they wouldn't have received these documents beforehand, because I have a feeling that's going to generate the next piece. So what we'd ideally like is, we'll send you these, and then if you can just ping us and say, okay, we've been able to digest, we've got a series of questions. If you think it's more amenable to email, just shoot an email to all of us, and we'll respond. If you think it merits a discussion, say, hey, we've got these questions, we'd love to get on a call, and I'll just work to get a call scheduled, and we'll get something together.
Okay. I think I have to do my homework with the PCORnet structure. I'm not certain that we have that in place here in our data warehouse, so I'm going to touch base with my DBAs. But once you send me the templates, then I can review that with them.
Sounds good.
Back to you.
Yeah.
And I assume. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to see if Josiah had any questions at this point.
No, I think I'll defer a lot of the extraction stuff to you, and then if you have questions in terms of, what smart forms or what data elements or whatnot, I can certainly work with you on that to define the data elements that we're looking to pull.
Perfect. I think, Josiah, you and I should set up a recurring meeting over, biweekly to review.
Sure. Do you want to go ahead and own that? I know my schedule is probably a little more flexible than yours.
Sure.
So if you want to schedule it at your convenience, I'm sure whatever time you pick on my calendar will work.
All right, thanks.
And I don't know if it helps you at all, but there is a project called pScanner that's done at UCSD that is a PCORnet project, and so I would presume you'd find someone there that would know if that PCORnet structure is around.
Okay, perfect. UCSD.
Like I'm seeing, Paulina Paul is a data analyst for pScanner at UCSD. There's a bioinformatics programmer named Kai Post. I don't know if people that are at UCSD versus in Rady are. I don't know how much crossover that is. There's an MD named Siddharth Singh, so there's a number of people to potentially connect with if you're not finding it directly within Rady, that you might be able to get some resources. Not sure.
Yeah. We're pretty separate on the technical side, but I will reach out to CTRI and see what I can find.
Great. All right, so we'll get you files, and you have some research to do. Please just, like, our goal is to sort of make this as interactive and as much as possible a platform for, improving our ability to train sites, build a set of resources. We're kind of all in this together, so we greatly appreciate both your time and anything that you can sort of raise as issue, or if you raise something and then you solve it on your own and just say, hey, this was something we didn't know and this is how we went about solving it. Those are all useful sort of FAQs for the process.
Perfect.
Great.
Very good. Thank
Anything
you all
else?
for your time today.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah, no, thank you guys. Appreciate it, everyone.
See you.
Very much.
All right.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
All right. Bye.